one of the best featherweights on the planet, the two-time featherweight PFL tournament winner, Lance Palmer. First and foremost, Lance, how are things today, and how is camp going in preparation for your next fight?
Everything's great. Everything's right on point. Today we're 9 days out from the fight, 8 days out from weigh-ins. So my weight's good. My weight's actually better than usual. And we've been quarantined in this hotel here where we're going to fight in New Jersey for the last seven days, I believe. So we got about maybe 8 days now, but 17 total days from the time we got here until fight night. So it's a long time to be in a hotel and kind of out of your routine. But I honestly brought everything to the hotel that I think I would need for that time period. So now I just call it my apartment.
I've obviously got to ask, you were the 2018 tournament winner, you were the 2019 tournament winner, but the 2020 tournament obviously didn't run due to the COVID pandemic, if you like. How difficult was not fighting in 2020?
At first, it was kind of tough because my main source of income, my main job or career is a professional fighter right now. And when I decide to retire, it's going to be on my terms and my family's terms of, when we make the decision. And so last year it kind of felt like I was being robbed a year of maybe not my prime, but maybe my prime. You never know. I was robbed a year of competition. And besides paychecks and things like that, the competition and a year of my athletic career was basically taken from me. And that was more frustrating than anything else, because you can always make more money. You can always find other ways to make money, but you can't just go and none of us really got released either. So you couldn't just go fight elsewhere. So that was kind of the frustrating part about it for me, but I just took it into a positive and did other things and still trained, still worked out. Working out's been a part of my life since I was a little kid. I started doing push-ups in my parents' bedroom every morning with my dad and my brother when we were I was probably 7 years old when I first started doing that. So working out and being fit's always been part of my life. So all last year was kind of like being able to recover a little bit and relax, but also keep my body pushing and kind of feeling good and being able to train whenever I want and work on little things to improve. And luckily I have a gym in my basement with pretty much everything I need. So the pandemic didn't really stop me from being able to work out every day.
You're lucky people with home gyms. I was lifting weights in my back garden at one point.
I think once COVID hit, it was like we got our last piece of equipment probably a month before that, because I was waiting on a treadmill to show up, and it was in February. And then in March, when COVID really hit and they shut everything down, everybody was calling me like, "Hey man, can I come over and work out?" I was like, "No, we're in quarantine, sorry." But like, I should have started charging a gym membership to all these people that were trying to work out in my basement.
Well, let's transition a little bit into the upcoming fight. So on the 23rd of April at PFL 1, you will face Bubba Jenkins. First and foremost, how do you view this style matchup?
I think it's a good style matchup. I feel that I'm better in a lot of the areas of MMA. And if we take the wrestling out of it, because we've both been out of wrestling for a long time, and that's just the honesty of it. We're both a wrestling background, but really I don't consider myself just a wrestler anymore. I consider myself a fully rounded professional athlete of an MMA fighter. And the striking, the way I can mix things up with my striking and my takedowns and my grappling and my ground and pound and my submission game, I think a lot of that supersedes where my wrestling ability was when I came into MMA. So I just feel that I have all the tools to come out with the win on April 23rd. And above all else, I think that if I put my best performance forward and he puts his best performance forward that I come out with the win.
And obviously we've got this, you both got wrestling credentials. As I understand it, you're both NCAA champions, if memory serves.
I was a runner-up once, and he was a NCAA champion once.
My mistake.
Mhm.
So you both got the wrestling backgrounds. Where do you primarily see this fight taking place? Do you see it on the feet, or do you think it'll primarily be spent on the ground, or maybe a mixture of both?
I think a mixture of both. I think, there's going to be a feeling out period in the first round, I think, of where we both feel that the fight's going to go. And then, imposing my will on him and controlling the fight, obviously, and adapting. If something's not going my way in the fight, I'll have to adapt. And same with him. I'm sure he'll adapt as the fight goes on. So I think the fight could go anywhere, but I don't think either of us are afraid to try and take each other down. So a lot of people are like, man, two wrestlers, it's just going to be a striking battle. But honestly, I think we both know that we can take each other down, and we know that we can wrestle. So I'm not afraid to wrestle in this fight. I doubt he's afraid to wrestle in this fight. So I think we'll see a little bit of everything. So I think it could be a good fight.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously you've been fighting in the PFL for a number of years now, which has its tournament formula, which it's kind of known for, if you like. Can I ask, do you like fighting in a tournament formula, and specifically this point-based formula where you're awarded points on wins and finishes and such?
I think it's a good system. The one thing that I get asked a lot is if I think about the points leading into a fight. But really for me, I just think about going out there and getting the win, whatever it takes to get the win. I don't really go into a fight thinking like, man, I need to get 6 points or need to do this or that. However the fight plays out is how it's going to play out regardless. All I can do is do my best in there and hope to get a finish if that's the case. But I don't really think about the point system so much before the fights. I just try and go out and do my best. And if I do my best, then I know I'll at least get a win. So that's kind of how I look at it. I don't really, I like the system that they have in place, but it doesn't change my style of fighting at all.
Out of interest, would you prefer a point-based style of tournament or a bracket style, similar to the way a Bellator or somebody like that does it, where you kind of can carve out a path?
I would say that the way that the bracket system of Bellator is set up is really cool. And now that they're doing the ranking system, then they can kind of do a better bracket, because the featherweight tournament wasn't really bracketed off of the point system or the ranking system. So I think now that it has a ranking system for Bellator, I think they'll even have better brackets set up, because you'll see the 1 and 8, the 2 and 7, you'll see all that stuff happening and kind of playing out a little bit. And in MMA, the rankings don't mean anything anyway, but at least it sets people up for trying to get a better seed, if you will. So I think that's really good. But the point system is cool for us because each season you don't just go into the bracket at the seed you were last season. You kind of get to prove your spot, and then you go into the tournament with whatever seed that is. 2018, I wasn't the first seed. I didn't have the most points going into the bracket, but I did have 2 wins, and it got me in. And so you got to win to move on regardless. So I think winning fights is always going to be on my mind more than trying to secure a certain amount of points.
Yeah, of course. And plus as well, with the PFL style, it's carved out in terms of dates, so you will know that you're fighting in April, and then I believe the next set of cards is the end of June, I think, if memory serves.
June 10th, I think, is going to be my next fight. I don't know exactly, but I know sometime in June will be my next one.
Yeah. So you will have an idea, and obviously the tournament should end, all being well, in December. Does that help in terms of your preparation, kind of having a loose idea as to when you're next going to fight?
Well, I heard this year it's going to be October, and then the playoffs are going to be earlier. I don't know if that has to do with us starting so much earlier or what it is really, but um, none of the playoffs or finals are set in stone yet.
Yeah.
So we're not sure exactly when or where they're going to be, but it's always cool to look forward at that stuff, but I never take my eye off the prize, which is obviously next week. And so you can't really move forward until you get through this first fight. So it's really, I don't think of anything but the fight that's ahead of me. And right now, April 23rd is all I got.
Of course. How much you've obviously been in the PFL from the first tournament until this, now it's third tournament. How much do you think the talent in specifically the featherweight division has improved over them 3 years?
Every season has gotten better. I got asked this question once before too, and I said the same thing. I think 2018 was a good season, and there was a lot of tough guys, honestly, and that's why they brought about half of those people back in season 2. But season 2 had new people that were in that were even tougher than the first season, and now season 3 is even tougher than the second season. So it's good. It's good that they're doing that, one, just because the competition's getting better, but also two, if you're capable of winning all of the seasons, or say, I've won 2 seasons in a row, if you're capable of winning a third season, it just shows that I'm doing all the right things to improve every year, because I'm fighting tougher guys every year.
And out of interest, there's been a couple of extra names that perhaps haven't been in the first 2 seasons. Obviously, with the gap last year, I presume that the company have been able to get some new signings.
Mm-hmm.
Who, in your opinion, out of someone you haven't fought, which would be the toughest matchup for you on paper? Is anyone you look at it out of the other 8 guys? Let's exclude Bubba just for a second. Is there any of the other 8 guys you look at and you think he could be a tough matchup?
Who wasn't in the 2019 season?
Yeah, we can do that, or we could maybe do somebody who you've perhaps already been in the tournament.
I mean, I know Mobley was in the 2019 season, but he wasn't. I didn't fight him in that season. I know he's very tough and he's very skilled. I'm trying to think. I know there's a lot of good guys in there, and a lot of them are new, and some of them I haven't studied yet because I don't have to fight them yet. So just knowing Mobley and knowing how tough he can be, I think that would be a really good fight and a really tough fight. So that would be a good competition. So
okay, we'll go with that. There is, as I say, there's a lot of new names, which I'm sure must be rejuvenating for yourself, rather than over them first 2 seasons you did fight some similar names, didn't you?
yeah, definitely. I mean, I know there's a lot of new guys. I know Chris Wade was at 155 and he's down at 145 this time. But it'll be interesting to see the difference in his size and in his performance in this first fight coming down, because I don't think he's ever fought at 145. So that'll be interesting. And then some of the other guys like Brennan Loughnane, I know he's tough, and I've watched him fight before in the showcase fights they had for him in PFL. And he's got a pretty tough opponent in Shaman Marias, he was in World Series of Fighting. When I was the champ of World Series of Fighting back in the day, he was in there. Trying to think who else. Tyler Diamond, who was an old teammate of mine a long time ago, he's in there too, and he's tough. He was Ultimate Fighter a couple years back, and then he was in. He's had a couple fights since then. So there's definitely a lot of tough guys. I mean, Lazar, he just got in. He was an alternate and just got in, and he's fighting Mobley this first fight. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And let's see. I know I didn't cover everybody, but a lot of people are so new, it's hard to.
Yeah, you don't have to cover everybody. As you mentioned, the focus is obviously Bubba, and I'm sure if you get matched up against one of these guys, then the tape study turns towards them.
Exactly.
I've obviously got to ask you this, or I don't have to ask you this, but I would like to ask you this, and I'm sure it's a question that you get a lot. If you win this 2021 tournament, you will be the 3-time PFL champion, you would actually have a 100% record in the tournament. Are you
Hmm.
happy to just continue in the PFL with these $1 million prizes at the end, or is there another promotion or goals that you have in the sport of MMA?
I think the emphasis on like the $1 million tournament for me is less than what it used to be. I think the first season I was like, man, you could win $1 million. Or the second season I was like, man, I can do it again. This time it's more about just showing that I'm still the best and still at the top of PFL with the new tough competition that's in here this year. And then after this season, depending on how it goes, I mean, I think that there's a lot of other options out there that I could take. And, you know, my main goal is to be the best in the world. So whatever promotion that is that I have to prove that, I think that would be nice to eventually fight, you know, against those guys and at least try to prove it before I retire. And, you know, we see Michael Chandler doing a great job of, you know, getting he's bided his time. He's been in Bellator for years and he was the champion. He's lost. He's won the belt back. And then he got his shot in the UFC and passed with flying colors and then got the title shot right after that. So I think the opportunity for that to happen in my life is definitely there, but I have to just keep winning these fights this year and focus on this season. But I think before I retire, there's definitely other options out there for me to test the waters. And for me, it's about taking care of my family. And it's going to get to a point where I'm not going to want to fight 5 times in a year just to collect $1 million paycheck. And so I mean, when you really break it down, I'd like to make more money per fight because I'm taking damage throughout training camp. It's not necessarily the fights that you take the damage, it's the training camps that you take a lot of the beating and you're beating your body up, and getting paid more each fight is what I feel is more important than winning $1 million at the end of the year for 5 fights.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I don't know. It's because you don't win $1 million at the end of the tournament. The tournament, like the playoffs and the finals, that's $1 million total. So you don't get $1 million check at the very end. You get, you know, a portion of that from each fight. So I think, you know, eventually a little bit more security of a per fight paycheck, a higher per fight paycheck would probably be the most security for me and my family leaning in towards, you know, the later part of my career.
Yeah. But featherweight has so many world-class fighters at the moment. It's one of the red-hot divisions in terms of real upper echelon talent. With that being said, is there anyone out there, perhaps in a different organization, that you would just like to pit your skills with against at some point? Someone that you maybe look at and go, stylistically, that would be a fantastic fight for me.
Obviously, Volkanovski is the champ in the UFC, and he's a guy that I would love to test my skills against and see where I'm at. Am I at that level, or am I not at that level? And a lot of people, you know, a lot of critics and people would say, you know, I'm not at that level because I don't fight in the UFC, and I've never competed against any of the top 10 in the UFC. But in the gym or in the training room, I've trained with a lot of people who are in the top 2, top 3, top 10 of the UFC featherweight division. And I feel that I would do just fine against Volkanovski, but having the opportunity is the only way you can test yourself. You know, it's kind of like Pitbull in Bellator. You know, he's one of the best featherweights in the world, and he holds the 55-pound belt as well. But I feel like not enough people give him the respect he deserves just because he hasn't had the opportunity to fight who the people think are the top 10 in the world. And so that's just the way it goes. The UFC ranking system is the only system that people really care about when it comes to being the best in the world, even though ONE FC, PFL, Bellator. We have a lot of the best in the world in all these other divisions also.
In some ways, I've never actually thought about it like this, but in some ways, featherweight might be the division proven that wrong the most, because there's obviously yourself and there's obviously Patricio Pitbull and to a certain extent AJ McKee. There is three world-class guys who aren't in the UFC, proving that the UFC doesn't equal MMA at all, and that's something that I think is only healthy for the sport. I'm sure you'd agree.
I agree 100%, and I don't think that the UFC is going to be willing to do any cross promotion anytime soon. So the only way that people are going to be able to test their skills is if they're in the UFC, to basically to prove to the everyday fan, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are smart about the sport that know that there's at every weight class there's top world-class guys who are fighting and holding belts, and it just, you can't prove it because they only believe that UFC top 10 is the only top 10 in the world.
Yeah.
So that's the tough thing about it, but you're until you get that opportunity to prove it, all you can do is keep winning where you're at.
Yeah, of course. No, where I tried to research this, but I couldn't quite find it. Where have you primarily been training out of for this camp? I understand you've been working with Sam Calvita, but is that your primary gym?
No, he's just my strength and conditioning coach. And I've been working remotely with him for the most part since 2018 from season 1. But I train in New Jersey mainly with Eddie Alvarez and Frankie Edgar and Coach Mark Henry, and Ricardo Almeida is my jiu-jitsu coach out there. And I work a lot with Coach Casey Halstead too from 10th Planet, Las Vegas. And Juan Archuleta is one of my really close friends. So we kind of cross train together too between California and New Jersey. So like I said, I have a big support group, and I have made a lot of friends in this sport who've become more like family than friends. So I kind of train all over, but my base camp is in New Jersey, and that's where I do the bulk of my training, even though I do go out to California here and there.
Yeah, I wanted to ask that because I've seen a couple of pictures on your Instagram down at Mark Henry's gym, and then I saw a couple of photos. I believe you and Juan went up a couple of weeks ago for a weekend in Las Vegas and spent some time with Eddie Barajo, memory serves.
Yeah, Eddie and Coach Casey. In the 2018 season, I trained in Las Vegas, and so Eddie and Casey and Eric Nixick, they were all those are my three main coaches out there, and so I had a really great relationship with those guys. And my wife and I wanted to start trying for kids, and so I kind of just brought everything. I wanted to be closer to Ohio where we live, and New Jersey's driving distance, so it was just easier for me to do my camps in New Jersey and be close to home to where I could go home every weekend if I wanted to.
Yeah. Well, for one final question, let's turn the conversation back to April 23rd and PFL 1. Lance, give me a prediction. What happens when you face off against Bubba Jenkins?
In my prediction, I think I'm going to finish Bubba before the fight ends. And I think a lot of it is just going to be pushing my pace and controlling the positions and getting him to a point where he's not going to want to be in there anymore. So I think I can submit Bubba. I don't know what round, but I think I'll be able to submit him before the fight's over.
Superb. Well, it was excellent to talk to you, and it's excellent to hear that you'll be back in business in less than 2 weeks' time.
Heck yeah, I'm excited.
You seem very excited, Lance. It must be nice to have a goal to work towards, because I speak to some fighters who say it's quite demoralizing to not have a fight when training and not have something to train for. It must be great to have something to strive towards once again.
It definitely is. Even with last year, though, I just made other goals.
Yeah,
I think you can always make other goals. They don't always have to be something that's a large goal or something hard to reach. You can make daily goals. You can make monthly goals. And I think after once the pandemic hit, after we weren't going to be fighting, I turned it into small goals for my other business and small goals with my family life, with my wife, and just daily things that I wanted to do and things to make me happy. And so, and just having fun and, you know, going out, ride on the motorcycle or ride on the side by side or just take the car for a drive, just little things to kind of enjoy life. Cause now we're back in the rat race and, you know, we're going to be busy and we got to do these 17-day quarantines away from our families. So, last year I got to enjoy a lot of things in life that I didn't the 2 years before that with fighting back to back to back. So you just got to take the positives out of everything. And even though, you know, some situations may be negative, there's always a positive out of it.
I feel like, and I'm sure you would agree with this, that some people may be stagnated in the quarantine period.
Yeah.
They just sat on their hands and waited for the world to get back to normal. And if you didn't make something positive out of the quarantine and this situation, then you missed an opportunity, in my opinion.
Definitely. I think some people were looking for the wrong result out of it. And I think that a lot of people like to play the victim instead of looking for other opportunities. And if you played the victim, you definitely had a bad 2020. But I think if you know how to adapt and overcome, there's always good things that can come out of bad situations. So it just depends which person you are.
Well, as I say, it's great to hear you back in action, and very much look forward to both the return of PFL and the return of Lance Palmer.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much. I'm excited for it.
Before we finish, Lance, how can people find you and maybe even your business on social media?
Yeah. For all of my fighting and personal stuff, it's at Lance Palmer on Instagram, Twitter, and on Facebook, it's Lance Palmer MMA. And for my business page, it's called Primescapes, and that's Primescapes Ohio, and that's on Instagram and Facebook as well. And my sponsors for this fight are Happy Jewelers and Sheepy Race. So I appreciate the support from both of them, and you know, just looking forward to this fight. I'm happy to be back in action, and all the support of everybody, even throughout the last year with not fighting, people who still followed my journey and things I do outside of fighting. And I don't define myself by being just a fighter. I do a lot of other things too. So I appreciate the people that support me for, you know, everything outside of fighting as well.
Yeah, superb. Great way to end. Thank you very much for your time today, Lance.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. Talk to you soon.